Can you guys hear me? How you doing?
Yes, we
There
hear
we
you.
go. There we go. Technical difficulties. So if you didn't hear me, basically I am Tayron Fleming, community pastor of the Well. We are. It's all about fathers today. So right now, as you see, we have gentlemen on here talking all about the fathers. There we go. Minister Harrison, what's up, brother? He's a son, not a father yet, but a son. So it's all about fatherhood. What does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a son of a good father? So we're going to talk about all that fatherhood in today's climate. It's going to be great. If you notice, Pastor Ray is not with us today. He is dealing with the issue. So we just give peace and blessings to him. He will be on next week, but right now he's just dealing with something. So we just ask that you keep him in our prayers, and we just wish for blessings. With that being said, this is Encounter the Well. Know that this isn't my podcast. This isn't your podcast. This isn't our podcast. This belongs to everybody. And if you are watching, you are officially a part of the Well. And during the Well, we always ask that you simply follow these codes. We ask that you truly encounter the Well. That's what it all means. So yeah, we are going to introduce everybody. There we go. Uh, when you encounter the Well, we hope that you do the 5 P's. 5 P's is through us. We hope that you find your passion, your purpose, your promise, your peace, and your power. Passion, purpose, peace, power. There we go. And we also ask that you encounter the Well. When we say encounter the Well, we ask that you encounter Jesus. When you encounter the Well, become the Well, immerse and share the Well. Encounter Jesus, become Jesus, immerse and share Jesus. Encounter love, become love, immerse and share love. All these things encompass what the Well is all about. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And as I just butchered that whole intro, I'm going to introduce today's guest. So we have Brother Demetrius, a father of six. That
My God, today.
say no more. That's all you need to know, right? uh, we have
It's
Reverend.
easy. It's easy.
There you go.
Oh man, that's a strong brother right there.
It's easy because now with you passed it. They grown. He didn't got through it. We
Now it's the
also have
grandkid.
Brother Reverend Joey, who comes from a different aspect, LGBT community. Love this brother. I've known him for what, 8 years now. Just an awesome man of God who adopted two beautiful children. We'll hear all about that. We got Minister Harrison, who has a good father.
Yeah.
We're going to hear all about that. And then you have me, Pastor Tay, who is newly a father. My son is only 5 months. So we're going to get all up into that.
I'm praying for you.
I need it. Trust me. I definitely need it. And just know that all the support we get, if you, whatever comments, we will be sure to shout you guys out. Again, all about the father. So I see that Miles is on. What's up, Miles? I see that Josh is on. What's up, Josh? Listen, whatever is going on, if you got any comments if you got any comments or anything you want to say, you got any love you want to say, be sure to put it in the comments. We will definitely shout you out and read those comments. So we start now. What does it mean to be a father? Whoever wants to start, by all means.
I'll start.
Yeah.
I think to me, what it means to be a father is to be responsible.
Mm.
You are responsible to shape your children. And all my kids will tell you that when they were growing up, when I was, before, all my kids are adults now. My youngest is 22,
Right,
or 23. but growing up, I always told myself I can't be your friend. I have to be your dad. I can't be the same guy that's going to tell you, to do your homework and take out the trash and be your buddy, because I need to instill some things into you while you're growing up. But then, now that they're, all grown men and women, now we can be friends. Now we can, kind of just communicate as adults because they understand what it is to be an adult. So I had to instill those things in them early. And I think that's the whole thing, of being responsible to raise those children in the right way. And then, as the Bible says, and later on, they won't go away from that. So that's what I think it is to be a father.
Love it. How about you, Reverend Joey?
I mean, I think the moment that I became a father, like for real, was the moment when I kind of began to really realize what this whole thing was. Because um, so with adoption, it's a little different, obviously a little different, but there's this whole process that happens. We spent about a year and a half on the waiting list and doing all, and a little bit longer before that of trying to go through all the process. But then on the day that we brought our daughter home, and so I was officially a dad, we go to the agency. They had a interim care mom who had taken care of her in between the hospital and coming to our house, and so they hand us this baby and help us strap her into the car seat, and then they're like, "Bye," and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm sitting behind the wheel going, "Oh my gosh, I have to drive my car with this baby in the back seat,"
Right.
and what I'm responsible. Like driving there, not even thinking about anything that could happen, but all of a sudden in that moment, I'm thinking about all of the things that could go wrong. About this amazing little person that I just met that I'm super excited about, and also responsible for. And so responsibility and fear and joy all like mesh together. That's what being a father is.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. I would say
Absolutely.
I never knew how selfish I was until I became a father. Like things I want to do now, the first thing I got to think of, well, how can I do that with TJ? So like, I think you nailed it right in the head when you talk about responsibility and what that means. Like it's crazy how much life changes once you have a life you're responsible for. How about you, Mr. Harrison? You were raised by a good man.
Yeah.
How much did having a good father impact you in your life?
Man, to be honest, I had to call both, my biological dad and I call him Daddy Ron affectionately, but my stepfather.
Mm,
I had to call them both on Sunday and just acknowledge, man, that I am who I am today because y'all took the time to do exactly what you brothers were just talking about. Y'all took the time to be responsible. Y'all took the time to be present. Y'all took the time to handle your business of being a man, yes, of being a husband, and all the other titles you held. But for me, for being a father and for being an example. And I think if nothing else, man, you all spoke to so many valid things. I'll just add an example. That was something that I had a whole lot of examples. Yeah, man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the real question, do you think we just celebrated Father's Day, obviously. Do you think that holiday is underrated?
Highly.
Yeah,
And
I was
generally speaking, highly.
yeah,
It's
I was
just
reading
not as
somewhere
high.
where in holidays, I believe a comedian said it that Father's Day is ranked 23rd out of all the holidays. And I can't name 23 holidays. So
No.
you know what I mean? So that's crazy to me. But like how do you feel this underrated the position of father, how is it underrated and what do you think, how can it change? Like what can be done to make that day more gratifying, or do you think it has to be? Is it the role of a man to be humble on that day?
Well, I say it's underrated, but then also I say it's not. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but the thing is, I think it is underrated because obviously it's not the same as Mother's Day.
Right.
You're gonna find a restaurant to go to on Father's Day. You're gonna be able to, whatever event you want to plan on Father's Day. If it's last minute, you're good to go. It's gonna happen. But I think for most men, I think that's kind of the way we want it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want, my kids to go over and above for me on Father's Day. All I want for them to be good people. You know,
Yeah.
that's my reward for me with my kids, just seeing that they're doing good. And So I don't think it's underrated in that sense, because I wouldn't want to, hey, Dad, we're going to take out to a special dinner and we're going to do all these things for you and shower me with a bunch of gifts. I just want to be around them. If they're not in the local area, get a call from them, talk to them, and just be like, hey, happy Father's Day, Dad. Love you. And that's good for me. We had a time to spend some time together that day, maybe, like this Father's Day, this might be our new tradition. We went bowling. And that was a whole lot of fun. I mean, we sat there and bowled and got some food, and there's a bunch of bad bowling. My wife bowled pretty good. She's the best bowler there. But a bunch of bad bowling and food and just hanging out and laughing and talking. That was a great day for me. I don't need a lot of fuss. So in that sense, I don't think it's underrated. But I think nationally, the way it's looked upon, I think it is underrated, because a lot of guys do a lot of really great stuff, and a lot of them are punished because of the deeds of people who don't, step up and be that good father,
Gosh.
So like Minister Harris said. So I think that's the thing. So I think the big change would be is just whatever you like. I know for me, like I said, I wouldn't want a bunch of fanfare and all that stuff for Father's Day, but I do think it looks a bit more highly looked upon, because, it's a lot of great men who out there doing a lot of great things, and everybody's not, some deadbeat or some person who's working all the time and not spending time with their children, or or the dad can't ever make to a baseball game that you've seen 1,000 times in movies, or a sporting event. It's a lot of dads who's there showing up every day and being great dads. They need to be celebrated.
Reverend Joe, you come from a different context. What is it like raising a child who has two dads? You know what I mean? You and your partner are raising your children together. So how do you split the how does that work? I love it.
Well, add into the context that Father's Day is always on Sunday, and I'm always working Sunday morning. So it makes it interesting. I'll be honest. My bigger concern right now with my kids. So I have one kid who is turning 2 on Tuesday, and the other turns 5 in August. So they're both young. Neither of them are going to be making me breakfast or, taking me out to lunch or anything like that. And so I think for me, what I appreciate is that they get the opportunity to celebrate us. And the school is really good about making sure that if they're doing a gift for one dad, they're doing a gift for both dads. And being able to acknowledge us, but more importantly for me, I don't want my kids to feel feel left out or feel different. And so I like that they get to celebrate us both. I don't know. In general, I think I'm kind of happy with where Father's Day is for me, because it's this. Like I said, I think my kids got to make little art projects for me, and they got to hand it to me and feel really good.
That's awesome.
I feel like that was a rambling answer. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. I love it. Yeah.
The joys of parenthood. They say it's a real thing.
You next, bro.
Yeah.
I see that smile on your face. It's going to change. You wait.
That's also what they keep telling me.
Yeah. Did you do anything special for your father? I know. I'm assuming he's still in Mississippi. Is it Mississippi?
In Memphis.
Memphis. Okay.
Both of them are. Yeah. Nothing in particular this year. Man, we are just trying to focus on some vision and some goals, and that meant this year, really trying to hunker down from a financial standpoint, so that years moving forward, we'll be able to, do some of the things like we really want to do. And that is especially in the area of giving, especially in the area of giving to family. Because growing up, just like you said, man, your kids don't always have an opportunity to give. And when they do, they don't always have an opportunity to, give the way that they want to give. And one of the things I've always told my parents, I said, well, man, when y'all grow older, I'm going to retire you, and I'm going to let y'all come work for me, and y'all just going to drive me around. Drive me around. I'm going to buy you a house. How about that? You just live rent free. You just walk around, do whatever older people do. And it was just a way, and a comical way, but an honest way. Like, if I have the ability while they are still alive, I think there's a word that I really value that they instilled in us, and that's honor. You know, respect is one thing, but I think honor it takes it to another level. Yeah, so I appreciate that I have an opportunity to honor my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Joey. You know, my kid TJ, he's only 5 months, so you know, it was cool just to see the onesie that said Happy Father's Day. Like that was big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was cool for me. And then, you know, I had to celebrate a day early because actually on Father's Day, I had to fly to Chicago because I was actually a part of Chicago's annual conference for all the Methodists who are watching. So I was, which I can't believe they did an annual conference on Father's Day, but nevertheless, shout out to
Not on
shout
Mother's
out
Day.
to
Right.
Chicago, Northern Illinois Conference.
We're
Yeah,
not gonna
thanks
get
for
into
that.
it. Yeah.
But
And
say it
and I
again.
just want to add, you know, this is the first year that my dad passed, February 25th. So this is the first year,
Oh man.
you know, my dad wasn't with me on Father's Day. So it was definitely different.
Yeah,
You know, it was definitely different, you know, celebrating that day without my dad. But like I said, it was good. I had, you know, my kids who were in the local area who were able to come, you know, we got to hang out, and I got to hang out with some of my bonus children. I have a few of those. So I have some bonus kids, some bonus grandkids. So we still had a good time. But it was definitely different, you know, this first year of not having my dad with me on Father's Day, or not being able to see him or call him or something like that. So
yeah.
it was
I can honestly say you handled that with grace. I mean, I was actually with you. We celebrated his life and had a cigar in his honor and had a toast in his honor. So that was great. And the you know, the funny thing is I lost my father only 3 years ago, and like yesterday was his anniversary. And you know, as time goes by, you never forget your father, but certain dates you just don't remember. The only reason I remembered it was just a Facebook post, and I was like, oh man. And it just, you know what I mean, it comes back into your mind. Which brings me to my next point. How much did your father really have an impact on your life? You know, like no one's perfect. Father, you know, as fathers, we do the best we can with what we got. What lessons did your fathers really instill upon you to make you the man you are? Anybody can go with that. Everybody humble
wow.
today.
For me, my dad, he was kind of stoic. He didn't talk a lot, but when he talked, you know, it had a lot of meaning to it. But he really was more by example. You know, that was his way of doing things. You know, just I watched him, watched what he did, watched the way he moved, and then just seeing, you know, how and that's what really impacted my life. Like, I mean, it wasn't like he would never talk, but he wasn't very big like me. My kids will tell you I can talk indefinitely. But my dad, he's just more by example. You know, my mom, you know, I've never seen my mom work. I've heard before I was born she did, but you know, my dad, he was, you know, we're married. She don't have to work unless she wants to work, and you know that's how it is. And that's, you know, and that's how I always felt. You know, my wife, she does work, but it's not a requirement. You know, she works because she wants to work. If she's wanting to quit today, she can quit today. I feel it's my honor to be able to take care of her. So, you know, but those are the kind of things my dad just kind of bestowed upon me. He was a really great man, a really great dad. He was extremely funny, had a great sense of humor, you know, but you know, he was a very hard working. He drove a truck for Chrysler. He retired really young. Actually, retired at 60 years old. So he lived 25 years in retirement. You know, never had a care in his life after that. So he had a really good life. Yeah. But you know, he taught me the value of hard work and you know, and getting out there and working hard while you're young, instead of, you know, waiting till you get older. You know, I don't want to be the guy, and no shade against them, I don't want to be the guy, you know, at McDonald's, you know, 70 years old saying you want fries with that. I don't want to be putting stickers on little kids' heads at Walmart, you know, at 75. I want to, unless that's what I want to do. You know, I want to have the ability to be able to not do that. My dad instilled that in me and my siblings at a very young age. You know, you want to work hard while you have the ability to, and not wait till you get older and then be in the struggle. You know, because now you have to work hard in your later years. So. It was not so much what he said, more so what he did, but it really did impact me a lot in life. And one thing he told me too, he said, you know, my dad, he drove a truck, and I always said, I want to drive a truck. Daddy said, no, you don't. He said, you want a job where you work with your head, not with your hands. He said, it'll be a much easier life and a much better life for you. He said, driving a truck is great. He said, but unloading, unloading trucks is, you know, he said, so you want to get a job where you work with your head, not with your hands. And that totally killed my dream at that point. But then it pointed me in the direction I am now doing cybersecurity, you know, because I said, man, you know, when I was young, computers were just coming out, it was the new thing, you know. I said, man, I want to learn to fix that. And that's why I got to that, partially because of what my dad said.
Yeah. Remind me to never let you talk to my wife because she's working. Just to let you know that.
Man, it's all right.
This, sweetie, I love you, but we working together, teamwork.
Hey, but you know what's so funny about that? I have always told Casey, and there's always been something in me just to I hate that you say it that way, but really just to piggyback off what you're saying. There's just always been this idea of the man that I'm like, I feel like I'm destined to be, right? That I see in my head. And it is the man that has now told his wife to be, you know, this time next year that, hey, look, I don't want you to have to work. I don't want to have to depend on your money at all. Let your money be the surplus. Let your money be the extra. I want to be the type of provider. And that's not to put anyone else down or to minimize any dreams of any other man. But the man that Harrison Morrow was imagining in his head is the one that exactly echoing some of those things. And man, one of the things that my dad, my biological father, told me and instilled in us was that, yo, everything in life is hard, son. I can see him right now, son. Everything in life is hard.
Yeah.
So choose your heart and give it everything you got.
Yeah.
And
that's great advice.
That kept me
that's
through,
great
man,
advice.
Many days, like not even really understanding what I was hearing for real, but trying with whatever knowledge I had and understanding at that moment to make the best. And you said it earlier, just making the best of what I had. And then, you know, stepdad comes along, 6, 7 years old, and he tells, man, I'm not here to take over your life. I'm not here to take your dad's place. I'm not here to be your daddy, but I am here to expose you to some different things. And I'm here to build you a better life.
Awesome.
And let me tell you, those two brothers I respect very highly today.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways that they have impacted my life. Just being able to carry that wisdom, man. They had it.
That's great. How about you, Pastor Joey?
This is a little bit trickier for me. So my dad is just being honest. We've never had a really great relationship. My dad's he's the stoic type, and he was in the military. So like half my childhood, he was off in foreign countries doing military. And so I was starting. I was 10 when he got out of active duty, and so at that point, I was starting to pull away, and we just never really got close. I didn't learn anything from him. I mean, we did scouting together. We did some of the father-son stuff, but it wasn't. We were never really that close.
Yeah. Do you think that experience helps you in to be a better father to your children now?
Oh yeah, I mean, and nothing against my dad,
right?
But
right.
I want that relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids to both know that they better not be getting in trouble, but also if they do, they can come to me.
Yeah.
That, you know, I want to be that person that's teaching them and helping them to stumble through their mistakes, and also there to celebrate them when they're succeeding and help them when they're walking through the hard days. And you know, I love nothing more than picking up my kids and giving them a big hug and just telling them I love them, because that's, you know, there's now that my 2-year-old in like the last 3 weeks has started saying I love you back. It's like that.
That's nice.
Yeah, I can dig it. Yeah.
So, I got a question, River Joy, if I could. As someone who absolutely has, you know, a wonderful father, but also has some things that, you know, need to have some conversations about, some things that I saw, heard, feel. Even now, going to therapy, I promote to any brother out here. We need it. We need to talk to somebody. I'ma just yeah. All right, great.
Great advice.
And so have you had a conversation with your dad about, some of the space, at least at the, at whatever, at any point in time? And if you did, how are you willing to share some of how that, how that kind of worked, how that made you feel? Was it, did it resolve any? I know you said you're not as close today, so, but, just trying to see if we could share some of that, see if we can gather anything from that.
Great question.
It is a good question. Unfortunately, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I just we don't really we don't talk a whole lot.
Yeah.
He's the type that when I call, if he answers the phone, he's like, "Oh, let me get your mother." So
yeah. Well,
got you.
You pray on that. Still time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my dynamic is a little different. So I was raised actually by my step grandfather as being my father. Funny thing is, I didn't know who my father was until I was around 10 or 11. And full disclosure, he lived across the street from me. And I didn't have a tangible relationship with my biological father until I was about 18, 19 years old. Now, with that being said, me and him now are like the best of friends. The drama and family feud that happened between that, it has been squashed and talked about, and everything else. We have addressed issues, and now he's like one of my best friends. So there's that. But pain is pain. We had to go. There were years. He didn't teach me how to ride a bike. He didn't teach me about the birds and the bees and things of that nature. So there's hurt there. There is. But my grandfather, actually my step grandfather, Raymond Lee Curl, I will say this: he was the most unperfect man, but he was the greatest father I've ever known. He was, I say to this day, he's my Superman. I never, as far as I'm concerned, he was the fastest, the strongest, the smartest, the hardest working, the funniest. You know what I mean? I didn't know, and I didn't realize how much he meant to me until he passed. Him and I call my mother, my grandparents, they died about a year apart. From the outside looking in, you would say I'm closer to my grandmother. I used to call her, talk to her every day. But when my father died, when Raymond died, man, I had to be on anxiety pills. I mean, I was going through panic attacks. It hurt me to my soul, and I never understood why. Because we didn't, kind of like you, Demetrius. He led by example. He didn't tell me you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do. It was never that. It was, you know what you need to do. I work hard. I supply for this house. I provide for this house. His main thing was, do good and don't embarrass me. That was the main rule. Don't embarrass me. I ain't had to be an A student, but I better not fail.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? If I got in a fight, it better be because somebody talked about my mama. It better be a good reason. And if I lied, that was my hampas. Like that was just who he was. I was raised very old school. And there was a story, and I think my aunt is on right now. She loves to tell it. I was one of 6, all of us in the house, and we weren't poor, but we was broke. Bills was paid, but we didn't have no money left over. Anybody know Mary's Steakhouse? They got them little steakums. We was poor, so when we had steakums, that was a treat. And it was one night he made steakums, and he made everybody a steakum. Now there's 6 kids plus my grandmother and him. He made everybody steakums, lettuce, tomato, and Miracle Whip. That was like we hit the lottery. And he was on the table, and I looked, and he was eating a lettuce and tomato sandwich. And I'm like, yo, why are you eating a lettuce and tomato sandwich? He said, get your ass up out of here and go downstairs. I'm like, why are you mad at me? I just asked you a question. It wasn't later that I realized, and I get choked up. He didn't have enough meat. So he made sure his family had the meat, and all he had to eat was a lettuce and tomato sandwich. That simplifies what it is to be a father. Like that's how I model my whole life. When I look at my son, best believe he gonna have some steakum. If I got to eat a lettuce and tomato sandwich, he's gonna have some steakum. And that story is just so like both my grandparents. I believe, and again, my aunt is on here. My mother, 9 years, she had one pair of shoes. For 9 years, she couldn't afford another pair of shoes because we were poor. But they made sure we always had clothes. It might not have been name brand, but we had clothes. I never went to bed hungry, never went to bed thirsty. They might have, but I didn't. And for me, that's what it, you know what I mean? That's what it means to be a father. And he was just a great man, stubborn as an ox. If he liked you, nothing he wouldn't do for you. If you crossed him, that's your ass. And that's just how he was. And but with that being said, Joey, you kind of talked on it. Nobody's perfect. So I guess this is for Demetrius. Were there things that your father did that you realize now growing up, maybe wasn't the best, and now you do different? I know, Joey, you kind of touched on that, and I guess Demetrius and Harrison, you can kind of speak on it. What things were different that you did different from your father? And whoever wants to go first can go first on that.
My dad wasn't very affectionate. Like, I think he hugged me twice, but I only remember once.
Wow.
It just wasn't his way. You know,
Yeah.
He had hugged me when I graduated from high school. Yeah, that's pretty much it, though. But he wasn't like, he never kissed me, you know. That's I remember. But he wasn't very affectionate, man. You know, he was just kind of, you know, I'm here. If you need anything, I got you. Want to talk, you know, you can talk to me. Might not talk back, but you can talk at me. But he wasn't very affectionate. That's something I did do different raising my kids. You know, I used to kiss them in the mouth when they was teenagers still. Yeah, come on, Dad. Whatever, shut up. Yeah. And I'm very affectionate with my kids still now, you know. Tell them I love them, tell them I hug them all the time, you know. Like my dad, I don't remember ever saying he loved me. I knew he did, but he never, you know, but just he never said it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So and I guess even with my siblings, you know, we're not affectionate like that with each other. Like, you know, if they need something, you know, they know whatever I have, you can have. But we've never been very affectionate where, oh, I love you, sis, love you, bro. It just wasn't the way we were in our household. So that's one thing I did do a lot different than my dad. I'm very affectionate with my kids, with my grandkids, you know, and all that stuff. But it didn't necessarily bother me, but it was just, I just understood
that's way.
Kind of just how it was. That was just his way.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing. My father said he loved me 2 times, and the funny thing is the second time he said it was literally the day before he died. Well, the day before he had a stroke that led to his death. He ended up having COVID. He came out of the hospital. I picked him up from the hospital and dropped him home. And when I left, he said that he loved me. The next day, he had a stroke, basically went into a coma and never came out. So I definitely understand that. And I don't know if that was a generational thing, but like old school fathers really didn't. And you know what's funny? My father, I grew up with him just being quiet. When he came in the house, I knew I had to take off his shoes and fix him a big pitcher of water. And he didn't say nothing else. It wasn't until he retired till I actually got to know who he was. I was like, oh, he's actually funny. Because he just worked. That's all. He just worked to take care of his family. So I definitely understand that. How about you, Harrison?
I'm not a father.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
No. Don't get me in trouble. But I want to highlight, man, 2 people who, if I'm for real honest, because we're on this platform, I'm gonna tell the truth. Who I forgot to tell Happy Father's Day, but that's another story for another year. My 2 brothers, and let me say that, man, my 2 brothers are what I've seen the epitome of steak-em dads. Like, they have had their ups and downs. One brother, you know what I mean? He's a typical oldest child, so he took the hard route. You know, had the baby before the marriage. You know, wasn't, you know, relationship there. He's had a lot of questionable areas in his life, but fatherhood has not been one of them. Other brother, got married, got 2 kids, the house, the jobs, they're doing the thing. I mean, you see pictures of them more than I see pictures of myself. I mean, always doing something, and both of them are always active with their children. They're always keeping them engaged and involved. And even if they're not the ones directly pressing a button, they're making sure that the people that they are engaging with, interacting with, are actually helping them to learn some stuff, are actually instilling in them some of that same wisdom that we was getting, some of them same hard lessons, and yes, some of them same whoopings, okay? The ones that we did not deserve and the ones we was absolutely guilty for.
Listen.
Yeah.
Hey, that's actually a good question. I didn't even think that's a good one. Discipline. Yeah. As a father, how do we? I'm gonna tell you, I didn't get whippings. I got beat. I got beat. I'll tell you a story. I was in school, and I guess it's different. I'm not that old, but I don't know. I feel like I was raised old school. Like a lot of these tattoos hide a lot of scars. I'm not gonna lie to you. I might have. I'm telling you, Social Security called my house like 2 times. I'm not gonna lie to you. I tell you, when I was young and crazy, I got arrested for shoplifting with a friend of mine, and my father said he better never step foot in this yard. He stepped foot in the yard. My father hit me with a 2-piece and kicked me down the steps. And my friend saw all of it. And then when I got to school the next day, man, he was cracking on me. Next thing you know, like 3rd period, I get called into an office, and some lady from social services asked if my life was in danger. I was like, no, I just got beat. Like, I messed up.
Just like normal,
Yeah. So they called the house. They called the house talking about they need to have a meeting. My father said, I raised this boy. If you want him, go ahead and take him. I was like, dang, Pop. You gonna let him take me?
At least you had social services call.
Yeah, okay. They say they didn't take me, but that was
no
like,
such thing. I don't think when I was growing up.
But that was the atmosphere I was raised in. Like I was old school. Like in high school, my father was already 60 or somewhere around there. Like he ain't.
Oh yeah.
He ain't play no games. He was old school. You know what I mean? But how that I know for a fact, as much as I love my father, I don't plan on beating my child as much as I got beat. I'm not against discipline. I'm not against spankings. But like I got hit with, like, I don't think I'll ever take a tree branch to my it just won't happen with me. But what with that being said,
yeah, me either.
Right. So, in what areas did you get disciplined that you won't or you didn't discipline your child?
That's funny.
Wow. None. My dad never spanked me. My mom was she was about 5 feet tall. She weighed about 120 pounds. That's when she was pregnant. But I was terrified of her. I mean, till I was like 19 years old. I mean, not like a respectful, reverent kind of fear, like Frady Cat, scared kind of fear. Like if she found like, hey, Demetrius, you want to go do this? And my mother might find out. I mean, so she was a very much so the disciplinarian in the house. But as it came to me with disciplining belts and buckles, it became me disciplining my kids. All of them were different. Some of them I could just, there might be one I could just talk to, and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
Another one, take everything away from them, and they'll be fine. But there was other ones who, they understood nothing but, capital punishment.
Yeah.
And my oldest son, that was his thing. He just, I'm gonna do what I want to do, Dad, and if I get beat, I'm just gonna get beat. And I was like, okay. So he got spanked. He got spanked enough for everybody twice. But he's doing good now. But he was just the one that I'm just going to do what I want to do. With like my youngest son, never, just kind of talk with him and he'd be fine, but I was very much so the disciplinarian when it came to the kids and making sure they did right. But whatever, I always believe whatever it takes, because all I would tell them said, I don't get no pleasure out of this. I'm just going to mark your memory. So next time you're going to do something stupid, you'll think, maybe I shouldn't do that. And that's why I never took any tools off the table, because it's a great thing. I know you two guys are younger parents and it sounds great. Man, I'm never going to spank my kids. And that sounds great. But the thing is, though, you would rather instill that lesson into them while they're younger instead of them getting older and don't understand the consequences for their actions. And that is my whole thing. I want to teach you there's consequences for your actions. And like I said, sometimes I might, like my one son, I took his door off, took his room door off and said, that's it. Took everything out of his room. He had a mattress in his room and no door. And that was his punishment. And the biggest thing for me, and with my mom too, it was disciplinarian. What I said went. If I said, hey, you're on punishment for 2 weeks, but it's Christmas and my birthday and Jesus Christ is coming back, I don't care. You're on punishment for 2 weeks. But everybody, I don't care. Do not leave the house. I would tell them, if the house is on fire, call me and say, Dad, the house is burning up. Can I leave out the house? That's what I mean. Do not leave out of this house, period. So, and they learned from that, my yay is yay and my nay is nay. And that was what my mom taught me. You can't be wishy-washy with it, because if you are, then it's going to play on you, or they're going to play mom against dad or dad against dad and go, so you can't have that. So that was my whole thing. I never took any tools off the table. I didn't use any tree branches, probably. But if I had to spank you, if I had to holler at you, if I had to, put you in timeout, whatever it took, I always felt like I want to have all those things available, because all the kids are different, and whatever works. But it sounds great, like I said, but I think getting spanking sometimes can really do a lot more than just go and put your nose in the corner, or go and sit in your room with the Xbox and the cable TV and all your phone and all that stuff, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Man, I got friends who I know have probably I told them, man, I was in school and they were just doing some stuff, and I just, man, you probably missed like 2 real good, important butt whoopings in your childhood that probably would have turned this stupidity around. And I'm a firm believer in the belt and the hand. However, now one thing that I did say, because me and my lady, we do talk about kids a lot. We just kind of, we try to, really consider our second and third order effects of our actions today. Even the food you eating today, they're not really going to show real effects to you, studies say, until about 20 years from now. So, you know what I mean? Just those second and third order points. And one of the things I always said is that while I do believe in physical punishment, I definitely don't want that to be the first method. Now, of course, now let's talk severity levels of, there's a metric scale here. You're going to shoot somebody in the face. This is not a time to go sit in your room and think about what you've done. This is dire. You know what I mean? But one thing I will say, man, really prominent preacher always said, man, you want to pay whatever cost you have to pay right now before you have to pay a price later that's going to be exponentially higher to accomplish the same result.
Yeah, and that was my whole mindset.
Yeah.
Because one thing I did, I said, and my kids hated it. They would rather get spanked. I would talk to them. And these conversations could go on for hours. Man. And they'd just be like, Dad, please just beat me. I mean, just please.
I get it.
I got it. You don't get it this way, that way, and 12 other ways. So, but they would prefer to just, you could just beat me. I'd have been good. But I want them to understand the consequences for their actions. Now, they might still get in some other trouble, but they want to understand the consequences for their actions. But that's the whole thing. I wanted them. Yeah. I want them to get in trouble at home before they go out and do something. Then now you're looking at jail time, or you're looking at something that's going to affect your whole life. Yeah. So and that was my whole thing. It was the same thing when it came to like doing chores and stuff. I hated my kids to clean my house because they sucked at it. I'm a virtual neat freak, and you know, I never wanted them to do it, but I had them do it because I wanted them to learn task discipline. So as you got older, and somebody told you on the job, "Hey, we need you to do this thing. You got a half hour to do it." You won't say it's impossible because I never did anything hard. But you have done hard stuff before. You've done a lot of hard stuff before. Stuff you learned at home. And say, "Yeah, this is hard, but I can get through it," and not just throw your hands up or freak out because you got anxiety because you just think, "Man, I just can't make it through this." So, and that was my whole thing. I want to be able to teach them those lessons at home instead of them having to learn them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Exposure.
How about you, Reverend Joey? As far as discipline.
So I definitely
there is none right now.
Right.
Well, there's partly that. I definitely had a few spoons broken on me over the years. So one of the interesting things that the adoption agency we used, they made us sign a form saying we would never use corporal punishment. So that is technically off the table. Right now, I mean, it's not really. Right now, the bigger issue is like how can I get your attention? So there's the flicking of the hand saying no, we don't touch that, or
right.
With the 2-year-old, like how do I get your attention so you're not, this is not something you're supposed to do. With the 4-year-old, we've been using timeouts with her and taking away her iPad time, and when there's certain things that we know she wants to do, making sure she knows, oh, you want to go to the pool this weekend? Well, if you don't do this, or if you do this, we're not going to go to the pool with you this weekend. So things like that, that's what we've had to use. Early on, I actually found timeouts to be more of, I actually don't know if it was discipline or not. It was just a good emotional reset for her. Sometimes she just needed 5 minutes in her room, in quiet, to sit and think about what she did, and also just get her emotions calmed down. And she'd come out, and we'd have a little talk, and she'd be. I have a daughter and a son.
Okay. So that raises a question. What's the dynamic between being a girl dad and then raising a son? Since you can go first, Joey, and Demetrius, you go after that. You can set this one out, Minister.
Yeah.
We battling out. I only got one.
Thank you.
I'll be honest. We were open to whoever got placed with us. Mm-hmm. But I really wanted to have a son. And so when we got our first, and I love my daughter. I'm very glad we got her. I was like, I don't know what to do with girls. And in some ways, there's been a lot of growing edges around. I'm not even gonna lie. I may have been wearing little Elsa earrings that were clip-ons this weekend because we were playing and it happened.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting experience to get. My daughter wanted to play, and so we were playing together. So doing that kind of stuff with her is something I never thought I would enjoy that much. But one of the things that I really love is I have my son, and we can go around and play. And he loves. I don't know if you want to call it wrestling yet, because he's obviously he's little still. But we wrestle around, and I throw him on the couch, and we're just playing all around. And I like having he's a rough and tumble boy so far. So
yeah,
I like that.
Awesome. Actually, I wanted to go back to Kalila. She did a point I didn't get to talk about in the comments. You should not make your kids pay for the pain that you suffered with pain. Your trauma and experiences make you need to be handled before you bring kids into the world. Good point. Very good point.
Very much.
Yeah.
One thing I was always advised by other parents was do not discipline your children while you are angry, and I would add while you are emotionally charged, because you may
Well,
not be angry. I'm not gonna say that that's it's gonna be you're gonna be 100% perfect, because we're human and sometimes we can shoot off quicker than we can, collect it together. It happens.
Yeah.
But just saying that is the general rule that I have always been told. Don't discipline your
So
kids while you're angry.
I have an unpopular opinion, and I'm gonna hand it off to Demetrius, but I'm gonna say this: at some point, you can't blame your parents for everything.
No.
That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not saying I didn't have the best childhood, but I know for a fact my parents love me. Did I get spanking probably more than I needed? Absolutely. I don't got this tattoo on my back because I wanted a big tattoo on my back. I literally have scars on my back. I know that comes from trauma. I know. I remember when my grandma started taking what we called happy pills, and she turned into a whole nother person. I know. But at some point in your life, at 37, I had to figure things. I can't, because I got too many butt whippings would not be the reason why I shot somebody. Like, at some point, I feel like as a person, you have to take responsibility for your own healing. I'm not saying that's
Absolutely.
wrong, but like, if you know you got some toxic traits that was a generational curse, you need to take your toxic butt to counseling. Like, you can't just hold on to it and say, since I was raised this way, this is just how I'm going to be. There's got to be some responsibility on the individual. I've always took that stance, but nevertheless, Demetrius, girl dad, you a girl dad and boy dad as well.
Well, actually, my daughter is through marriage, so she was older.
Gotcha.
But as far, but we I mean, I don't call her my stepdaughter. She's my daughter. So
right.
that's just that. But I don't see us any different as far as teaching those life lessons or disciplining them or whatever else. It's just still trying to instill those same things into your children. And I understand, her saying, you don't want to have your trauma be your kid's trauma. But I appreciate the spankings I got as a child. I grew up in a very rough area. I grew up in the inner city in Detroit during the 80s, during the crack epidemic. And I seen the difference between the kids that were disciplined and the kids that weren't.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't here, because their parents didn't instill that discipline in them, and they went out and did things and got caught up in that drug era, and a lot of them died. I mean, just a couple years ago, I know guys that just got out of jail that got locked up when I was 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily, it was traumatic for me at that time, maybe. But looking back on it, I really think it helped steer me away from a lot of bad things that I could have got involved in. So it's and that was my whole thing with my children, is that I never disciplined them when I was upset. That was the whole purpose of talking to them, to bring me down, to bring them down, and let them understand, this is why you're going to get disciplined. And it sometimes might be a spanking, sometimes it might just be a talking to, sometimes it might be, go sit in your room or whatever it was, at that particular moment that I felt was merited, to help bring me down, to help bring them down, to get them to understanding that I'm not doing this because I'm mad at you, I hate you, or whatever. I'm doing this because I want to mark your memory. So, next time, if I do this again, I'm not going to be able to go outside for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. If I do this again, I'm going to get a spanking. If I do this again, I'm going to have something taken away from me that I want. So next time you go to do it, you think for a second and go, man, maybe I won't do that.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think raising a girl, raising a boy is the same. It's just because you still want to try to instill the same things within them.
Yeah. I respectfully disagree. Only because in my context, so in the previous marriage, she came into the marriage with 3 children. So for 4 years, I was a stepdad to 3 little girls. And it's just different. Like I just know how I was raised, and at first I tried to. You're just softer with women. You know what I mean? You can't. It's just a different dynamic. The love is still the same. But and
that might be the case, but like I said, she was 14.
Yeah. So like the youngest when I came into the picture was only 2.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I would never like whoop a little girl. I don't ever want her to know what a real man's hand should ever feel like. You know what I mean? So in that sense of like punishment is different. I do believe the love though. I don't think the love does change at all. Like to give you a shout out. Shout out to you. Yeah, you know.
Put a
So
fly
we
screen.
are close to time. So 2 more questions, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. So we are proclaimed to be Christian. How does our faith in God really map our the way that we father? I would love to know you, Reverend Jesse, because you're gonna have pastor kids. And we know the stigma that comes with pastor kids. They wild and outrageous. So what will that look like? What do you think that's going to look like, and how does your faith really shape, especially being a pastor? How does it shape how you raise your children?
Well, I think one of the things for my kids, I was actually having a conversation about this today. My kids, they're going to be raised in the church, um, but I want to raise them in a way that they get to choose church, and not. And 'cause I think that's, granted, this is all experimental on my part, but I think church is my life, as in like my job. I'm at church 6 to 7 days a week, most weeks. I want my kids to be able to choose church and to choose God and choose relationship with God. I don't want them to feel like it's been pushed on them, because I know me as a high schooler, I was made to go to church and it made me resentful. And I can only imagine how much more that might step up if you're the pastor's kid, and then everyone else has expectations of you. And the tendency to rebel. So I want to encourage my kids. I want to make sure they are raised up in a way that allows them to be able to make the choices when they can, and I want them to be able to have the seeds planted, so that I dropped out of church when I was 16, and I ended up back in church in college, when it was my choice. And I want my kids to be able to do the same thing. If at some point they feel like they don't want to go to church, I'm going to want to have some serious conversations about why. But I'm not going to want to force them and make it into this thing where they're. I think that's going to only push them away from God. And I think that's how. Well, I saw how that negatively affected me, and you know what? I turned out all right. God still got to me,
There you go.
and I had those seeds planted from I was raised in the church, so I see how the fruit of that can come. So I want my kids to know they are loved. I want my kids to know that they have a place with God. I want my kids to know that they can go to church and find people that will love them no matter what. That on their worst day, when they've done the worst thing, that they know that not only can they turn to me and to the family, but they can turn to their church, because their church is their family as well.
Yeah, I love that. To piggyback on that, actually, my family never really we were a Christian family, but we never really went to church. Like my grandparents who raised me never really pushed me to go to church. And honestly, when I decided to go to church, they kind of started going to church because it was almost like I planted the seed in them to really start going. But the first knowing of God I ever had, the first word, usually every Sunday, my grandfather would always play Heaven 600 on the radio and would blast it. And that was my alarm clock. Every Sunday I woke up. I didn't go to church, but I always heard Heaven 600. And when he played Heaven 600, I knew I was getting pancakes and bacon and scrapple, which I didn't eat because I don't eat scrapple. You crazy if you do, because that's nasty. Nevertheless, I'm like, I always knew that was the Sunday ritual. And so like that was my first introduction to Christ. was through my grandfather. And you don't think of that. Like, you think of church just being, you find God in so many different ways. And I can even remember when I got baptized at 9, they made me go to a class at 9. I had to go to a baptism class. And like the day of my baptism, my grandfather drives me to the church. He's like, hey, y'all got room for one more? And he got baptized. And I was jealous. I was like, hey, I had to go to this class, bro. You can't just, you know what I mean? But, that's the workings of God. And actually, shout out to my biological father, Will Moore. He just logged on. So what's up, Pops?
My
What
sister
about
Ann
you?
just logged on.
There you go. Hey. So what about you, Demetrius? How has your faith really scripted how you father?
Well, I'm not very smart. So, a lot of the stuff I've learned, from the word. That's
Mhm.
what kind of how I shape my life.
Yeah.
So just I look at how Father God is, and how he would want me to act and how he treats us and how he's long suffering, and how, you forgive, 70 times, 7 times, and that's me when it comes to my kids, I love them. I can't, I don't have the ability to love my kids like God, I'm not God, I don't have that
Right.
ability to have that agape kind of love where, you know, I just make a choice to love them no matter what they do. I'll always love them. But I try to get as close to that as possible. So when it comes to me and fathering my kids, I'm very long suffering. I want to be there to help them and aid them, but I also don't want to handicap them. And that's my biggest thing when it comes to being a father, especially now my kids getting older. I don't want to be that force in their life, that every time they need something, they turn to me, turn to me, turn to me. At some point, you got to be able to turn to you, and you got to be able to turn to the faith that you have in God to be able to say, I can get through this. And sometimes it bothers me because they don't ask me enough, because I think I might have did too good a job with that. And they'll be in the struggle and be like, why don't you just call me, man? I got it, Dad. I got it. No, give me a call. But I do like the fact that I want to love them, but I don't want to, if it's possible, to overlove them and to handicap them. So now they're totally relying on me and not relying on themselves or relying on God or on their own faith. So I tried to instill that into them when they were growing up, go to church, have faith in God, understand that God is for you, God is with you. And he's not just with me or with somebody else, he's also with you. So when you're going through a tough time, you're going through a difficult time, you can lean on God yourself and be able to get
Gotcha.
through it and not just have to always run to your to a parent to get
Awesome.
things taken care of.
Yeah. Harrison, how has living in a Christian household affected you and molded you? Obviously, you a awesome young man and with an awesome fiance and doing awesome things in the ministry. How has just being reared in that type of household reared you? And how do you, when it is time for you to bear a seed, how will you impact your faith into your child?
So we were a pretty much every Sunday church going family. Um, Now, granted, a lot of my early childhood memories up until about maybe 5, my mom was single.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, for majority of that time. Um, and we were doing our thing. I do remember there were Sundays we missed once my stepfather came into the picture, though. Now that was every Sunday religiously because he was a drummer, so he was a musician. He was extremely involved. The church that he attended was his family's church for decades, so they had, and not that ours wasn't, but again, they were just a lot more pious in their tradition. Um, and it was something that I grabbed and grappled on very quickly too, including my stepfather, who then introduced the drums to me. And, now 20 plus years later, I've been playing in the church just about out of 52 Sundays, at least 48 of those Sundays, I'm in somebody's church. And I'm likely in more than one service on that Sunday. And it has kept me out of a lot of trouble. It has absolutely helped me to remain strong in some areas where I know I could be fully depleted. Um, But it also, on another side that I had to, and am, now less coming to grips with and more trying to, navigate a little better. It also put me on a different trajectory than anybody else in my family. So there's now in my adulthood a certain distance between me and my family because I just grew up a little bit different. They went to school, they came home, went to McDonald's to work, and they lived like the typical childhood, got into typical children trouble. I was always in church, and me being the youngest of three boys, single mom, she made sure that there were plenty of men in my life who were, good male role models. So on a Saturday, I'm in somebody's meeting, doing some with an organization. I'm just extremely involved. And there was not as much time spent with my family. So like these years more, later now, I've had to be extremely intentional about family time.
Yeah.
So saying all that contextually to say, man, one of the things I really want to be intentional in my later years and with my children is not making, family time a sacrifice for worship. Not allowing the church to be everything for me. I want to serve in ministry. I want to serve diligently in ministry. I want to make God proud, me and my offering to him. However, I want my family to be supportive of not just me and my journey, but for them to have some stake in this too. For them to benefit and to mold and to see an example of, so that when they do get in their hard times, they're not going to turn to everything. And if they turn to some things, it's going to happen. But I think somebody quoted the scripture earlier. If I train them up in the way that they should go while they're young, when they grow old, they may leave for a little while.
They'll come back.
That memory will never depart. The Holy Spirit, the Bible says he's there to bring to memory. He's there to remind us. And I just believe, man, that if I do a really good job, they're going to have some problems anyway. Listen, I got my own, okay? But I feel like they're going to be all right. So I feel like that is, if nothing else, growing up in a household of faith, I can truly say that things will work out because they have to.
Love it. Love
I live by it.
Yeah, I love it. And actually, I did want to, I know I did just give a shout out to my biological father. I know I talked a lot about my grandfather, but one of my proudest moments is that my father, and I'm taking responsibility. I know it was the Holy Spirit, but he gave his life to Christ on my watch. He got to see me preach a sermon, which was great. And you know what I mean? He gave his life to God, to Asbury United Methodist Church, and I'm so proud of him for that. That was only, I don't even think it's been a year. So like as I said before, I wasn't, you know what I mean? We didn't get close until I was around 19, but he has been my best friend. So I don't want to paint the narrative that I don't know. I love my biological father, and we have just the greatest relationship. He really is one of my best friends. So with that being said, we are close to the end. So we're going to end it with the last question, and I'm going to put my boy Harrison on the spot. As a person who is not a father, what is one thing you would want to know? Ask anything you would want to know that you think somebody who is not a father would want to know, as far as advice that you would want us to give.
Man, that was Jesus. You came out shooting.
I love you
too. Man, okay. Here's what I would want to know. As three individuals, as three men here who are co-parenting, in whatever way you want to look at that, you all are doing life with another individual and y'all are raising kid or kids. The dynamic between the two parents, how do you navigate that space? And what is some advice that you can give to help make that space, I won't say easier, because you'll never, we won't have the same challenges, we won't have the same trials. However, what are some of the tools in your toolkit that you can offer to some gentlemen? Like, I'm getting married next July, real life example. And in the next 2 to 3 years, our plan is to wait 2 years after marriage so that we can travel, just enjoy ourselves before we have another.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
And let's just say in a perfect world that happens. What advice would you give me from July 12th, the day I say I do, to the day that we conceive? What advice would you give me to start preparing me for what this walk is gonna bring.
Harrison, I ain't never putting you on the spot again.
The spot right
Throw it
back.
at you.
Ever.
Pow, pow.
Joey.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. I asked. It sounds like I'm like joking in this moment. We ask these questions to people for real, so this is nothing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just recorded. I love it.
One, enjoy every minute before you have children, because it does change everything.
Yeah.
Everything changes. And if you have more than one, it changes all over again when the second one, I don't have more than two, but I'm assuming when the third one comes, things change all over again. So
Absolutely.
enjoy your time together before. And I think the best advice to be perfect. Because you're gonna make mistakes.
I don't know what just happened. Can you say that again?
Oh, don't expect yourself to be perfect, because you're gonna make mistakes, and no matter what, as long as love is at the core of what you're doing, you're gonna do all right.
Yeah. That's good advice.
I receive that. Yeah.
How about you, D?
Man.
I say, obviously, you and your fiance is doing this now, but communicate. Ask those difficult questions now. You know, because sometimes you're going to become to an impasse. You're going to say, "Well, I want to do this with our child," and she's going to say, "I want to do this." Communicate about those things now. If we come to an impasse, what do we do? What do we do to move forward? You know, because that's the thing. You don't want to get to the point where now, you know, because kids will do it. You know, they'll pit, you know, mom against dad. You know, and like I said, you know, hey, dad said you're on punishment this week, but you know he has this thing he's supposed to do. That's his football game this weekend, you know, and they're playing in, you know, the state championship. Well, he shouldn't have did what he did. How do you break that impasse? You know, you have to be able to say, well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and let him go, but then he's going to be on punishment for 2 weeks. Or it might be like, I don't care what's happening. That's the end of it. So you want to talk about those difficult situations like that. That, and also make sure that you continue to keep each other first. Because as wonderful as your kids are, Joey and Tay, my youngest is 6'3". They're going to grow up and leave. And you don't want to be there married to somebody who you put on the back burner for the last 18 years. And now you're going, who is this stranger I'm married to? Make sure that you keep each other first, because your kid's going to grow up and go, and then it's going to be you and your spouse there. And you want to still know that that's the most important person in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
cool,
awesome. Y'all took all the good ones. Man, I would tell you, as a new like 5-month-old baby, I would say patience. Because it is not like the movies. It is not like, once that baby comes out in a couple days, they're just going to be like, you got a car seat? Okay, bye. And there's nobody. It's just you, that baby, and your wife or significant other, partner, whatever. And you guys have to figure that out. Like, so you just got to have, when a baby's crying and you don't know what to do, and you thought you done burped it and fed it and everything, and it's still crying, and you frustrated with her, because you asking her questions and she don't know either, and you guys, you got to have patience with the baby. You got to have patience with each other. It's funny. I changed jobs, and my wife, she was over, I guess her maternity leave left, and she went back to work. And I have to watch TJ. At first it was her watching them and I went to work. And then when it changed, I had a whole new perspective. I literally couldn't stop. When he first came, I couldn't stop him from crying. I had to sit him down while he was crying, go downstairs and cry for a second because I didn't know what to do, and then go back up and handle the situation. So it's just patience. You got to have patience with the child. You got to have patience with your wife, because it is a new thing. You don't know how selfish you are until you have a child. It's a new thing. So I would just preach patience. But we are at time, a little bit over time. I want to thank you all for coming on. Obviously, Brother Demetrius.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Joey, Listen, if you guys want to seed or support what we're doing, if you guys want to be a part of the squad, you got different topics you want to talk about, encounterthewell.org. Also, if you want to give, encountertheorg.org, or just text give to 84321 with any dollar amount. We would love anything you give, and we will ask that God just multiply and bless us as well as you. Again, if you want to support, like, share, subscribe. Don't allow you to be the only people who are getting this good food on all social platforms. Also, as you know, we are mostly just a visual platform, but we are moving into the podcast realm starting next week. All of our episodes will actually be on Anchor, so wherever you can watch podcasts. So that's Spotify, that's iTunes, that's iHeart. Wherever you watch podcasts, you can obviously watch. You guys have been great. Anything else you want to say to the people before we leave out?
Have a blessed day, and God bless fathers.
There you go. There you go.
Even if sometimes underappreciated.
All right. Don't.
That's it.
Yeah, put that one last hook before we.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody. And Brendan, Will, Sema, Tiffany, Kalila, everybody else who I forgot. Obviously, everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Joseph, Brand,
all the people in the comments,
Lisa,
gang.
There you go.
Miles, Avery.
There you go. Also, Pastor Ray, who couldn't be on, he's dealing with something, so we give prayers to him. Yeah, we love you guys. Don't forget to like and share. And until next time, thank you, gentlemen.
Blessings, man.
All right, be blessed. We out of here.
All right.